Okay, this video is just stupidity quotes about stupidity. Basically, I'm working on a project and I just came across these quotes and, they're all there together. I might as well make them into a quick video. So that's what I do. I sort of wing it. When something just comes along, I get a feeling, I just make a video while it's fresh in my mind. All right, and these are kind of fun. All right, so the first one is there's no cure for stupidity. Aristophanes, the great Greek playwright, had written, ignorance can be outgrown, but stupidity is forever. And sadly, that's kind of true when you're dealing with people. If somebody's repeatedly stupid and has no interest in changing, just write them off as stupid and don't waste time because they're always going to be that way. Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool to his folly. And that goes well with the Voltaire quote. It is difficult to free fools from the chains they love. Yeah, it's like just getting somebody to change their diet. The average dummy can't do it. A Goethe quote, the German, stupidity is without anxiety. And I think that's one of the benefits of stupidity. And so, I see all these people, they're just hopelessly stupid and lazy and with no curiosity. And in a sense, they gain a benefit from that because they're shallow-minded and conformist. Nothing sort of bothers them. They always think everything's okay and the whole institution and country are all set up to, to their benefit. They just can't understand why they're broke and they're sick and everything's going down the tubes for them. But that's just the way it is. Okay. Margaret Atwood has a good quote here. Stupidity is the same as evil if you judge by the results. And that's very much like the Hannah Arendt quote, the banality of evil, meaning that lots of evil things happen just because people are so stupid. They do bad things, not because they're bad, but just because they're lazy and stupid and they go along with whatever bad thing, is in fashion. Okay. And there was a good quote here by George Bernard Shaw. He said, when a stupid man is doing something he is ashamed of, he always declares that it is his duty. Yeah, I've seen lots of guys do really bad things, and they just say, well, they were only following orders. Yeah, where you've heard that in the 1930s. We were only following orders. And people are doing the same thing today. So it's kind of sad, but, stupid people will do bad things, not because they're intrinsically bad, but just because they will obey whatever they are told, like a stupid animal. Okay, Malcolm X. Only a fool would let the enemy teach his children. Yeah, the public school system is the enemy of your children, okay? Get your kids out of the public school if you have any way to do so. They castrate children. They're insane. Okay, John Ray. It is a foolish sheep that makes the wolf his counsel. Yeah, kind of the same thing. All right, in the public schools, they turn kids against the religion of their parents. They're terrible. All right, Euripides, the great Greek playwright, he said, speak sense to a fool, and he calls you foolish. Yeah, that's my experience, too. If you try to give unsolicited advice to stupid people, they just get mad at you. Hippocrates, if you are not your own doctor, then you are a fool. Yeah, because typical chump trusts the system rather than tries to figure things out for themselves. In the movie Gone with the Wind, Rhett Butler had a good quote. He said, learning to think for yourself is the beginning of wisdom. Okay? In Proverbs in the Bible, it's fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Okay? Socrates had said, the naming of terms is the beginning of wisdom. Okay? I think it was Aristotle said proper definitions. Well, that's sort of like Socrates is the beginning of wisdom. There's other ways to look at that one. Okay, the main cause of disease is ignorance. That's Ruth Heidrich's PhD, the multi-decade survivor of metastatic breast cancer. And so she, basically said, look, you just learn a few things. She became a vegan in 2 hours after talking to Dr. McDougall. And she survived metastatic breast cancer for, about 40 years so far. Okay, Byron. Those who cannot reason are fools. Those who dare not are slaves. Yeah, a lot of people are in that category. They're scared to say or do what they think because society's become much more intolerant. In the name of tolerance, society has become intolerant. Okay, here's a quote by Thucydides, the great Greek historian. He wrote the history of the Peloponnesian War. He was an admiral in the Athenian Navy, and then he got blamed for a defeat, and he kind of was suspended in exile for a while. And during that time, he decided to write about the history of the Peloponnesian War, and it's magnificent. If you want some well-spent time learning a little history, listen to what Thucydides had written about the problem with Milos, what happened to the Melian people. It's very sad. Okay. Look, his speech of Pericles, his oration, funeral oration, and the magnificent paintings of that, but how the Athenians actually behaved soon after that when there was a plague was quite a contradiction in terms. So Thucydides, he's good. I like Thucydides, okay? Nietzsche loved Thucydides. Nietzsche sort of saw Thucydides as, the greatest Greek historian ever by far. He didn't like Herodotus because Herodotus would bring in the gods, and Nietzsche viewed that as an intervelt, attributing things to an outside world rather than dealing with practicality of what was here and happening in life on Earth. And Nietzsche also said that Thucydides was very much like Machiavelli. He's a very objective realist. And as a matter of fact, he felt that society in ancient Greece was decayed, damaged by Socrates and Plato, that they had tried to change man into this overthinking wimp who, use this intervelt system of the perfect forms rather than just dealing with objective reality. So he felt that would lead to a decline in the cognitive function of the Athenians. And many people would see it as just the opposite, but that's kind of interesting in a sense, like Luther was, who put an end to the Renaissance. He sort of says that Plato and Socrates put an end to the greatness of Athens, that it was before them that they had the great playwrights, the great Thucydides, etc. Anyways, here we got some French quotes now. Anatole France, he said, "If 1,000,000 people say a foolish thing, it is still a foolish thing." Yeah, and that's very much like the Augustine quote, right is right, even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Yeah, and it's good for people to be that way. And Christianity empowers people to be that way, to do what is right in the eyes of God and not worry so much about what the local ruler is saying if it's bad. Okay, Jean de La Fontaine, a French poet, he says, "All the brains of the world are powerless against whatever sort of stupidity that is in fashion." Yeah, that's just like the modern world right now. All the Western civilization, it's being, destroyed because no one can speak up to close the you-know-what down south, and thus their countries are being destroyed. They're afraid of being accused of the R word. Oh, gosh, it's better to let your country be destroyed than be accused of the R word. Oh, my God. Okay, here's a quote by Petronius, one of the ancient Romans. "School makes fools of our young men because they see and hear nothing of ordinary life there." Yeah, the purpose of school is to make people stupid. And a lot of things people take for granted in school as being useful are actually a waste of time. I personally think mathematics is a waste of time for 99% of the population. Like I said, I work in some pretty high-tech fields. I never have to use any mathematics that I didn't know by 4th grade, okay? So why should all these kids be required to study, trigonometry and algebra? They're never going to use it. Almost less than 1% of the population will ever use that stuff. And it distracts them from learning things that will be useful, learning for how men and women can get along with each other and stay married, learning how to start a business, learning how to finance a house, a car, etc. Okay, here's another quote by Jacques Barsoun, another great Frenchman. He said, "Formal education makes people biologically stupid." And that's a little bit of a joke about women in the sense that the old saying is, the smarter a woman is in school, the stupider she is in life. And I actually think there's some truth in that, because I know some female doctors that, man, they're real smart in medicine, they're good doctors, but they forgot to have families. They forgot to get married. They forgot to have children. And I think they end up pretty sad and lonely because of that. So it's kind of strange. All right, Bertrand Russell quote. Bertrand Russell said, "What is the difference between a bright, inquisitive 5-year-old child and a dull, stupid 19-year-old? 14 years of the British educational system." So any public school system in any country tends to be a system of making everybody conformist, getting them to have a standardized view of history, events, behavior, and propriety. Yeah, and it makes them dumb. That's why you want to escape that system if you can. You have to go through some type of school system to get the degrees, the certificates that are sort of, a ticket or a passport to the next stage and get them promoted for some jobs. But real education primarily comes from what you study on your own. Even if you get the degree, like I got a degree in medicine, which gave me a helpful background, but I really learned medicine from taking care of patients and then from reading on my own. And my reading on my own and, watching internet videos was the most useful part of it. Okay, next is a quote by Ralph, and there's also, an equivalent quote by Alexander Dumas. He says the same thing. "Why are kids so smart and teenagers and adults so stupid? Because their brain has been dulled by the conformity of a standardized public educational system." Okay, Ralph Waldo Emerson. "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds." Yeah, it's like the dummies always, hold your foot to the fire if you break convention. Ralph Waldo Emerson also had said, "The world whips you with displeasure for nonconformity." It's very true. Especially you can imagine if you're trying to change conventional ways of doing things that are making other people profitable, they're not going to like it, which is the case in medicine. Okay, George Bernard Shaw. I already did that one. When a stupid man is doing something he's ashamed of, he always declares it's his duty. I'm just following orders. Yeah, acting like a jerk and a maniac because you're following orders. That's not cool. Aeschylus, another one of the great ancient Greek playwrights in Athens, he said, if one is wise, it is beneficial to seem foolish. And that very much is like what Schopenhauer said. What Schopenhauer said is that the smarter a man becomes, the more people hate them. Like I said, I've said this myself. People like good athletes. If somebody's a better athlete than them, they like it. They like being friends with that person. They like people who are celebrities. It feels as some celebrity component rubs off on them, okay? But it is different with intelligence. I don't know how to explain it, but it just is quite often. Really smart people like each other because it's rare for them to find another really smart people, and they enjoy each other's company, and they can learn from each other, and it's just pleasant. They can understand each other's jokes, inside jokes, and all the fun. Okay, but on the other hand, average mediocre people, a lot of times they sort of hate smart people and do a lot of passive aggressive nasty things to them, and that's why a lot of really smart people become kind of like loners. They'd rather just be entertained by a book or a project they're working on than listen to somebody bitch at them about something. Okay, let's see, here's Dennis Diderot. He says, it is often necessary to give wisdom an air of foolishness to procure its entry. And that's very much like Oscar Wilde's quote. He says, if you want to tell people the truth, make sure you get them to laugh or they will kill you, because people get very offended by the truth. And they get offended if somebody, acts like they're smarter than them, and they just do. So it's kind of a little bit of a dangerous game. You got to be careful about being smart. That's why it's good to kind of act stupid. But it gets boring having to act stupid. It gets boring to be told you're not allowed to talk, which is the case quite often. Like I told you guys, if I would go somewhere in the car with my wife to visit relatives or friends or whatever, she would all very routinely say to me, now don't you go talking here today. You're going to freak everybody out, and nobody cares about all your ideas and all your, what you're reading. So I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun for me. I got to sit there and just not be allowed to talk. Okay, anyways, here's Montesquieu. He said, I have always observed that to succeed in the world, one should seem to be a fool, but be wise. Okay, Jane Austen. The person, be it gentleman or lady, who has not pleasure in a good novel must be intolerably stupid. And so basically, yeah, if a person doesn't keep reading, they become stupid just because they're not, not most people don't have an intellectual enough job in daily life to maintain a high level of cognitive function unless they're doing something, doing some reading or have some friends or are studying something on the internet. You just become dull with time if you don't maintain your brain. And it's very easy to read. Put a book in your bathroom, a little table in your bathroom to read. Listen to audiobooks in the car. It's easy to read that way. I read at least 2 books every week just by doing that. I read in the bathroom and I listen to an audiobook in the car. Anyways, I hope this was fun, useful.